Hello, Jen here with a layout for Tuesday's inspiration. This week's inspiration comes from Mel. It's going to pop up right there for you. This gorgeous watercolor, rainbowy, pastel kind of image with just, some gorgeous colors on it and a little bit of sparkles. I think it's perfect to start June off with, bright, colorful, summery colors. I almost get a little galaxy-esque with some of that navy blue in there, and also a little kind of aurora borealis. So yeah, lots of ways that you could kind of look at that image and lots of directions you can take with it. So that is exactly the point of Tuesday's inspiration. We share an inspiration between the four of us. We just rotate through the weeks and everybody shares an inspiration piece, inspiration image, and then we all create a layout or project using that same image. And you guys are welcome to follow along. Please do if you want to take the images and create with them as well. We would love to see it. Tag any one of us on Instagram and Facebook, or just let us know down below if you've been creating too. And yeah, I think that that's really fun, and definitely we are trying to find things that have you maybe thinking outside the box a little bit, or just looking for some unique ways to be inspired and kind of get you creating and get some of that spark going. So it's all about having fun. And for me, it's all about just sitting down and letting loose and, seeing what comes out of it. So I am tying this week's layout into the Scrap Shots challenge for the month of June as well. And that challenge is a project inspired by food or drink. And so I looked at that image from Mel and I thought to myself, I'm going to do a donut. I don't know what made me think that, but it just kind of looked like frosting with sprinkles, that like glitter that you see in it. Yeah, I thought that could be sprinkles, and so let's have some fun and see what we can do. So I showed you two different ways here that you could kind of achieve that look. I'm not using quite the exact colors because actually the picture I thought I was going to use I didn't end up using, but the one I thought I was going to use had more kind of pastel, like bubblegum pinks and bright blues and stuff like that, and so I was going for more of those colors. But I wanted to show you two ways that you could maybe achieve with watercolors the same feel as the image. So on this side, I went with my good old faithful trusty smushing technique and just kind of smushed those colors together. And I've done this quite a bit on the channel, so if you're kind of looking for some tips and some guidance, there are lots of videos on my channel that can help you out with that. But essentially, you just don't want to turn everything into mud. So the one thing about the smushing technique is you can smush and kind of let neighbor colors kind of blend together, which is really, really fun. So if you're looking at the color wheel, all the neighbors kind of blend. But if you want to add in some of those contrasting colors, which are colors opposites to each other on the color wheel, you usually have to let things dry a little bit in between. Or they can, make a bit of mud. So what you saw me do there, because I'm super impatient, is I added some of the colors, like the pinks especially. I wanted that to be a predominant color. So pinks and blues kind of blend and work really well. You end up getting some nice, purples and stuff in there. You can also blend pinks with the yellows and oranges, because you've kind of got the first three families in the rainbow. The red, orange, yellows can kind of start to blend a little bit, and then you get different variations of red and oranges and yellows, but that green can sometimes be the one that causes the problem. And so I just lightly dabbed the green on. I didn't squish it down and really kind of move that paint around. I just gave a few little pops, and I mostly just added some green in there because I really wanted to sort of have a little bit of that contrast and all of those rainbow colors kind of represented. But you don't have to do that. You definitely don't have to choose contrasting colors at all. And when it comes to kind of letting colors blend, it's a little bit about the paper you're using. I went with watercolor paper because I knew I wanted to play a little bit and get a little bit wet, and maybe go over things a few times like you saw me, add in some color. I didn't want such a bright white contrast on all the spots where there was no paint. So I kind of made sure to fill that all in because I'm thinking, if I had a pink frosted donut, you probably wouldn't see any white, right? So I kind of went back in. So I knew I would probably be adding a lot of water. So I went with a watercolor paper that can kind of handle the water and handle being a lot more wet and lets things kind of blend really nicely. But honestly, the trick is just to experiment with the paper that you're using. You guys know most of the time I don't grab my watercolor paper. I tend to go for regular cardstock, and you just kind of start to get a feel after you've done it a few times. You get a feel for the weight of the paper and the texture of the paper, and you can kind of start to familiarize yourself with how those watercolors and how, just the paper being wet is going to work out. So it's all about kind of having fun. If you're nervous about it, grab some cardstock that you don't think you'll ever use, maybe something that is, kind of hidden at the bottom of your paper drawer that you haven't touched before. Maybe it's, just not your style, not your color, whatever it might be. But grab that out and try playing around with it. Even if the colors aren't exactly what you were hoping for, it can definitely teach you how your paper is going to react, how color is going to blend, or if it's all just going to soak right in. So you can definitely, experiment and play around and kind of learn in that way. And if you're not really into the whole kind of smushy look that I was going for, which was sort of the idea of, some sprinkles and stuff on it, I really liked that kind of smushy look. If that's not for you, on the other side, I just used my brush and I made kind of the same swirl or like loose lines of color that you see in the inspiration picture. So you could definitely do that too. And again, on that watercolor paper, you could see I was able to kind of blend and let some of the water do the work of sort of smoothing the lines in between the colors and blending them so you get this beautiful rainbow. And I also drew the swirl so you could kind of see the contrast between the dark black line and the rainbow colors. Either one of these sides could have worked for me. Honestly, I would have been really happy to use either one of them, but I decided to go with my first instinct, which was the smushing technique side of things. So I wanted to show you both techniques, and because it was watercolor paper, I could paint like that on both sides. There's some cardstock you would never be able to do that with, but I figured since I had that paper out and that's what I was using, I just went ahead to kind of show you that you could do that too, and it would make a beautiful project as well. And obviously you could use this technique, and rather than making donut frosting, you could, cut out hearts or stars or punch things out of that paper, or honestly you could then let this dry nicely and then run it through your Cricut or your Silhouette and die cut something with it. So it's just kind of a fun technique to create your own background or create your own colors. You can see how beautiful that is. That's the kind of swirl side now that it's dried. It is just really nice. I love that the watercolors give a very soft look. And those tend to be what I reach for the most. And so that is sort of the inspiration. Right there is my beautiful donut swirl. And then I just drew that kind of loose shape around the edge to look like frosting and on the inside as well. And then I went into my cardstock and found a few different options. I kind of showed you some of those options for what I thought I could use as the donut and then the background paper. All of these are just random pieces that I have in my stash. I actually think the cardstock I ended up using came from Studio Calico, so it's pretty old, probably like 2012, something like that. And then just some pink cardstock from American Crafts. I think I probably also got it in Studio Calico, or maybe from Daisy. I got a bunch of cardstock stuff from Cardstock Warehouse, so it could have been one of those maybe. Wherever I got it from, it has a little bit of texture on it, so I did experiment with my donut stamp where I knew that my donut would actually cover it up, because I wasn't sure if the stamp was going to come out really nice and crisp and clean on that texture, but you can see it actually did really, really nicely. So I took my black and white kind of not perfect grid. The lines are a little bit wonky. They're not all quite the same spaces apart, but it's still kind of a neutral background with just a little bit of detail that to me kind of adds texture for my donut. So I used my icing to trace the size of my donut and make sure it kind of fit nicely together, and then put my donut together. I popped up both pieces, so the donut has foam tape underneath it, and then so does the icing, so it has lots of depth to it. It doesn't quite give it a 3D effect, but it definitely doesn't sit flat, so I thought, everyone kind of recognizes what a donut might look like on a plate or in the box, and so I thought it would be fun to add a little bit of depth there and kind of get that popped up a little bit. And then I did some stamping. That is a close to my heart stamp that I've had for a really, really long time. I've never actually pulled it out and used it, so I finally got to get that used up. I thought that was really fun too. And now I'm creating my little embellishment clusters. So I did at first print out my pictures as teeny tiny little, like 1.5 by 2. No, what are they? 1.5 by 1, I guess. Little tiny photos, but I thought they were a little bit too small. So I went back and printed them so that they were half that little sheet instead of a quarter of that little sheet, which just meant that I kind of spaced them out a little bit. I was expecting to have just maybe one photo or two little photos. But yeah, I ended up finding 4 photos. So I did 2 photo embellishment clusters, kind of spread them out across my donut. And of course, my photos are of donuts. This is one of our favorite places to go. It's a little ways away from us, not too far, but not the kind of place we could go every day. And so it was kind of a fun treat the first time we went and actually made it there when they were open and picked all of our donuts. And they're very yummy, kind of traditional donuts, but they have some pretty cool, fun different flavors too. So everybody got to pick a few. Actually, the first time we went, we got 24 donuts because we shared them with everybody. We figured we had driven that far, we might as well grab a bunch and then share them with all of our friends and family. So that's what we did, and yeah, they were super yummy. So my 2 little clusters are all made up of components that I have in just this random iris container of embellishments that are kind of more of my bright, summery, fun embellishments. So I can't actually tell you where they came from. I'm pretty sure at least a couple of them are Rosie's Studio, but the rest, I don't I don't entirely know. And I even got some flair in there because I did have one that says, I think it says more sparkles. No, sorry, more sprinkles, which makes sense because my son loves sprinkle donuts. That's his favorite. Just those plain old vanilla donuts with some sprinkles on them. That's, every time we go to Tim Hortons, that's what he wants, vanilla dip. That's his thing. And then the other one says, Donut Give Up. I had to think about that for a second. Donut Give Up, which might not seem like a very relevant thing, but in actual fact, it kind of works for us because this is a place that we had on our list for such a long time. And, finally we got there. So I feel like this little flair was just our little bit of encouragement that we finally got those donuts. So it works for me. It has a cute little pink donut on it, so I'm going with it. And then I used some glitter, obviously, to go ahead and put some extra sprinkles on there because it looks like there's glitter in the inspiration piece. And then I also used some flat back gold kind of metallic half pearl things. I don't know what you want to call them, but I thought those were really pretty and kind of gave a little extra, bit of depth to my donut sprinkles too. And now, just as my little finishing touch, I am adding a little bit of silver to the donuts that I stamped, just a couple of their little sprinkles with a silver metallic pen, and then a few little sprinkles of the gold spray that I have, and that's it. I'm not going to color them in or anything like that. I'm going to leave them just like that. I think they're gorgeous, and that is my layout for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please check out Hollie, Mel, and Lynda's videos as well, and until next time, happy scrapping. Take care. Bye.